Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a video on a key concept within Raid Shadow Legends, which is speed. We're going to be looking specifically at how speed works with turn meter. Now often what we find with new players, they will understand what speed is as a concept. Obviously every champion has a core number of speed. And then they will come into our Discord, or they'll come across the game and they'll go, what speeds do I need to do X? And they don't actually have the knowledge yet to understand how speed works with turn meter, and they kind of rely on Deadwood's calculator, which is an amazing resource out there, to basically do all the science in for them. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring all the concepts that we see in those calculators into a series of videos, probably across a couple of videos, as some of these topics are quite advanced. But for this video specifically, I want to focus on the key concepts, terminologies, how it works, so that people understand the relationship between speed and turn meter and how that they can get an advantage of that. So we're going to cover some terminology first that you see across different tools, and we'll go from there. So as I mentioned previously, every champion has a speed value within the game. This can be rounded up and cause some significant problems when we're talking about speed tuning to a very, very fine number. So for example, even though the champion might have 201 speed, this could be 200.6, 200.7, and the game will always round it up in the game interface so that it looks cleaner. But as the game calculates all of turn meter based on a decimal point of view, you could find that two champions are 201, but actually because of the rounding, one champion is slightly faster than the other one, and that can cause problems. So when we talk about true speed, we are talking about the actual calculated value of speed before it gets rounded in the game. When you're looking at Deadwood Jedi's calculator, you will see that when you manipulate the sets and Lore of Steel in the calculator, you'll find that it's got a true speed value. And actually, let's go just take a quick look at that now so we can see how that works. So I've just got a tune up. This is my clan boss speed tune here, and we can see Lydia, I've put 344, but because I've configured Lore of Steel with 3 sets, it actually means that her speed is not 344, it's just under, it's almost 343, it's 343.53, and that's because of the way that Lore of Steel calculates additional speed. It's obviously giving you 15% of the 12% that you get from a speed set, and obviously the 12% is based on a base stat, so none of those, unless you get like a really lucky scenario where everything gets rounded to a single digit, which is very, very unlikely, the true speeds are always going to be different. Now watch the impact here of certain combinations. So obviously this is in a tune. Now if I was to basically change the speed configuration of my second man-eater to be, say, 3 perception, his speed hasn't changed, but his true speed has, and that has resulted in the tune actually falling apart. Now, there's going to be rare situations where you're going to find the situation of very, very sensitive true speeds, in the sense that I've only got a 0.6 percentage, of speed where it'll break. So for me, it was very important. Now, obviously, I can rectify this by just basically putting Lydia up, and then I can do whatever I want. However, apart from that combination, however, it's very important that you understand that true speed is different to normal speed, and knowing the true speed can be the difference between why your tune is working and why your tune is not. So let's carry on with other terminology. Okay, so that's covered true speed. Turn meter. So the turn meter is fairly obvious. When you're looking at an enemy or you're looking at your champions, there is a bar on the screen. That bar at the bottom of the HP bar is the turn meter bar, and that indicates how much distance you are to your turn. That doesn't necessarily mean when that's full you're going to take a turn, because there's tiebreakers, which we're going to cover in a bit, but it's just an indicator of how much turn meter bar you've filled. Now, speed will calculate how much you fill that turn meter by, so the faster the champion, you fill it faster, but we'll cover the math in a second. The math that specifically relates to that is called tick rate. So if I have speed and I've got turn meter, I want to know the rate in which I fill that turn meter. So when we reference the word tick rate, we basically mean how quickly that bar is filling, or in terms of the fixed value, how much does one individual tick fill that bar. Now obviously a higher speed will have a higher tick rate, lower speed, a lower tick rate. And then finally, when we talk about speed tunes, What we essentially mean is we have created an intentional structure to the way that we take turns. So we can predict what turn we're going to reach with what skill at what point. And that is about basically not running the RNG. We're not just throwing 5 champions with random speeds together and hoping it all works out. We're basically saying we want this to happen in this order. And that's really why we've managed to push the extremes of Clan Boss, because we can ensure that we're at a 2-1 ratio. We can ensure that Unkillable is up at the right time, at the right moment, by speed tuning, by understanding these mechanics. So that's the core terminology. Now, in terms of game mechanics, we've data mined out ages ago, to be honest. This is what the Deadwood Jedi calculator is built on. But for anyone who's new, who hasn't seen that, they probably overlooked some of the early videos when we first started doing this kind of process of speed tuning. In the code, there is a fixed value for a turn meter, and that's set at 100. And then they've set a turn meter fill rate of 0.07. So what that basically means is you take the 100, you divide it by 0.07, and you essentially have 1428.57143. That's basically, essentially, how much turn meter you need to make a turn, in a better word. The important thing to remember here is the 1428 rather than anything else. That is that's the fixed number that we're going to use to determine tick rate for all your champions. Because the turn meter max and the fill rate has created that number, it's basically saying to you, from a game perspective, you need to basically take your speed, divide it with that number to work out what you need to get to 1. We'll put it in a table now so it makes sense. So I've got a bunch of champions here who are set at different speeds. We've got the Clan Boss speed at 0.19 at 190. We've got Nazana, ARS, just some champions at different speeds so you can see the impact. So the way we work this out is we take 274 or 190 and we divide it with that 1428. And then that gives you a decimal value. And the goal is you need to filter 1. Once you filter 1, the game goes, this person is ready for a turn. So what we actually see here is for a Clan Boss to take a turn, he needs to do 8 ticks. That's what we call divisions. I'm not going to cover speed divisions in this video. That'll be another video because that's very complex. But for the purpose of this video, you need to understand that divisions basically mean how many ticks in total do I need to take before I get a turn. And this is an advanced topic. But it's just to give you an idea here. So you can see that the Clan Boss is going to take 8 ticks essentially to get to its turn. Someone like Nazana, even though it's running at 274 speed, is going to go 2 ticks sooner. And all these 0.13, 0.19, 0.21, you can see lower speeds of 0.08. That's 12 ticks. So that's how we know how to speed tune, is essentially we've determined the maximum turn meter bar. We then take that number, divide it with the champion speed. That gives me a tick rate, and that will tell me how many ticks that I need to do to get to a turn. Now, in terms of, well, what happens if you've got a champion that's 274 and 275? The way that the turn meter will work then is it will go, okay, 2 champions reached 1 at the same time. So we've got a tiebreaker. And what it will do is it will pick the champion with the highest turn meter at that point. So if you've got reached 1.05 and you get to 1.1 on another champion, it's going to go to the 1.1, even if the 1.05 has got a higher speed in that sense. So we can see that here now. If we break this down into sort of like a tick calculator, this is essentially what Deadwood's Jedi calculator does in the background. It's a very, very advanced tool that simplifies a lot of this for you. So you can see we all start at 0 turn meter, and then every champion will fill their turn meter based on their tick rate. So you can see we've got ticks going down the side here. The box where it's highlighted red basically indicates I've hit 1, I should be taking a turn. So at this point we would go, okay, well the Clan Boss is at about 60% turn meter, ARS hits 1.05, right, ARS takes a turn. When she takes a turn, she resets her value back to 0.21. Now the next champion here is 1.150. That's Nazana, so she's now reached 1, great. There's no other champions here that's 1, so she now takes a turn. And again, she resets her turn meter back to 0 and then ticks again. But obviously every time they take another tick, they're adding, so they're never really ever at 0 turn meter unless you have champions that are doing some weird mechanic. So, for example, what's his name? I'm thinking off the top of my head. Hegemon. Hegemon will start before anyone else takes a turn. So their turn meter is at 0. That's probably the only point where a champion actually takes a turn with other champions at 0, because everyone has to have at least ticked once normally. And when you reset after your turn, you've always ticked 1 to go to the next turn. So you go from 1.05 to 0.21. The clan boss then will eventually take a turn when he gets to tick 8. So that's how you can see how the ticks translate to the divisions. And we can use that in the next video I do to actually manipulate the way that a slower champion actually goes a lot slower than their speed. And that's a concept called divisional drag-in, speed divisional drag-in. So we'll cover that in another video because it's quite a complicated video to cover. Okay, so now we've covered that, and I hope that kind of makes sense to people. And if there are any sort of questions on that, just put it in the comments below. I'll be monitoring them for the first day or so. What I wanted to do now is just show you the impact of increased speed and turn meter, and how the buffs and instants differ between each other. So I've got a spreadsheet here, and we've pulled the numbers that we had before in terms of the tick rate. And what I've done is I've taken the same numbers, but I've actually applied a 30% increase in speed. Now, important note, pre-battle speed increases, we're talking auras or we're talking speed sets, they all work off your base speed number. So if we're talking about an aura of 30%, it will take a base value of 100 as an example and increase that by 30%. So you'd end up with 130 speed on top of your other speed. Increased speed works on your total speed because it happens in the battle. A bit like increased attack versus, sort of any impact on increased attack from Great Hall. That's all done base. When you're in the game, increased attack is your total attack. Same thing works for speed here. So that basically means if I applied increased speed on Eris, who was at 300, her speed would actually become 390. It's actually quite a significant amount. So how does that actually affect her speed divisions and tick rate? Well, you can see Nazana jumps a complete division. What that basically means is she's going a complete extra tick before what she was previously. With Eris, she's taking one as well. So you'd think, wow, 90 speed should go a lot faster. She doesn't actually go that much faster in terms of one round of turns. Now that might change if you were looking over a 50 turn. You might start gaining a lot over that time. But in terms of just a sort of tick to turn rate, it's a 1 gain. But if you look at a champion like Bulwark, he's gone from 12 ticks down to 9 ticks. And it's the same thing with Stag. So what you actually see is the tick rate for slower champions means that they actually get to turn a lot quicker, whereas a faster champion might not. However, a faster champion is going to gain a lot more speed. Now, the difference between speed and a instant that increases turn meter is the turn meter actually manipulates the number that I'm at when that happens. So, to explain this better, imagine this is your calculator for another word. So we've got a load of ticks down the right here, and these are the actual turn meter bar at the point of being filled. So if, for example, at this point here, now I'm just going to highlight this sort of green. So if at this point I have a champion that does a 30% turn meter fill, what that's actually going to do is it's going to go, okay, so say like the champion is Nazana that does it. So Nazana is going to go and say, well, Eris, you're at 0.63. I'm now going to add 0.03. Bulwark, say like you're there, I'm going to add 0.3. So basically every champion here gets 30% added, or 0.3 added. So what that basically means is Nazana's just moved up a ton. She was at turn 5. She's now going to go quicker. So you can see it's just basically moved her forward in the turn meter. This is different to increased speed because I haven't changed the tick rate. She's still going to tick at the same pace. I've just given her almost like bonus value. So the reason why champions like Seeker work so well is because they basically force the speed divisions to be different, because instead of just increasing tick rate, they're actually just overriding it and just putting 30% in. So it could be, as an example, if I just backtrack this now. if, for example, I didn't want the clan boss to go here, well, the way that I would do it is I would find hopefully a champion that is within 0.3 and force it to be higher. So for example, if I was to add 0.3 here, now that's not enough. But if I was to basically say, okay, Bulwark, I want you to run at 150. And let's just take this back a little bit. We probably want this to run at a little bit slower here. Doing math on the fly. So if we just rock him down to 140, there we go, that's the example I want to show. So if we did a 30% turn meter fill here, what you're going to find is the next tick he takes, he's going to be tied with the clan boss. But because we did that 30% extra fill, he's slightly faster, very, very slightly in terms of turn meter bar. He's just a little bit ahead, which means from a tiebreaker point of view, the clan boss can't go. So the clan boss basically, instead of going I'm going to take my turn and reset, what he's actually going to do is he's going to take that 1.064 and he's going to add another one. So instead of the formula that we've got here, it would literally be that plus his base. So now he's at 1.197. So he's still increasing his turn meter bar over the 100%. This is where people will say in videos, you can be more than 100% turn meter bar, and why sometimes you'll see Cold Heart remove only like 30% of the turn meter pre-floor 21 back, so you don't have the 50% reduction. It's because actually, instead of it reducing 50% of the turn meter, it's already over that. It's at like 130%, so it's only reducing 20% from the max. It's a bit complicated to explain without visuals, but essentially what it basically means is by doing a turn meter fill, I forced the clan boss to take an extra tick before he would normally take his turn. And you can do very clever stuff with this, which we'll cover in a future video. So I just want to close out that point a little bit with a visual in the Deadwood Jedi calculator. So one of the things I'm not sure everyone realizes is you can actually see what you saw in the Excel document that I had, the turn meter bar filling, by clicking on each champion. So where you were seeing the 0.01, 0.05, in this bar here, you can actually see how your turn meter bars look from within the game. So if I look at Maneater here, Maneater is obviously going to go next because he's the fastest, or he's going now, for example. He's got the highest turn meter bar, but you notice it's at 152, and that's because when Lydia goes here, Maneaters are already at 100, but because they're below Lydia, they have to wait their turn. Now, when Lydia takes a turn, because this Maneater, the purple one, is slightly faster, we're talking 0.3, 0.4 true speed faster, he's going to win the tiebreaker because he's just a little bit faster. And then the next Maneater goes. But as you can see, because we're forcing them to take extra ticks, the turn meter bar continues to grow until they take a turn. Which means the clan boss here is actually almost taking a whole half a turn meter bar extra in terms of ticks. Now, what you'll see here is the impact of a turn meter fill. So Lydia's obviously giving me the 30% speed boost. That's so that I can actually get the speeds of the champions up to enough point to force my team to go in a 2-1 ratio. What Seeker then does is he overrides the clan boss's point. So when we're sitting here, we're looking at the turn meter. So when Seeker goes, we can see that the next person that is likely going to go is probably going to be the clan boss. It could be the second green Maneater if he ticks at enough rate that is going to be greater than the clan boss. Now, as I'm going at 285 speed versus a clan boss's 19, it's likely to be that he will go first. But certainly champions like Ninja here, he is not going to get another turn. Maneater, the purple one, is not going to get an extra turn. And Lydia is not going to get an extra turn. But when you look at the calculator, you think, well, how is that possible? Lydia, Maneater, and the other Maneater are definitely getting an extra turn. Well, what the 30% does is when he does A2 Seeker, he's going to put Lydia up 30%, Maneater up 30%, Seeker up 30%. Now, Seeker is shown twice because he gets an extra turn. But what we can see here is now the impact of that turn meter fill means Maneater green is guaranteed to go next. So when he goes next, we can see that the clan boss is destined to almost go next, but we know that our purple man-eater is going really fast. So by the time we get there, we can see that there is a tiebreaker. Now, I'm right at the base of the minimum speed that I can run this purple man-eater. If I was to run in one speed lower, it would fail completely, because this number here is very tight. You can see if I can increase the speed a little bit, it would break again. So the numbers in my tune are very sensitive. But what we're doing here is, because it's 160, again, it forces the clan boss to take an extra turn. My Lydia is running extremely fast. Lydia then gets an extra turn. Without this 30% fill here, this does not happen. And increased speed couldn't make it happen either, because you need the speed. The increased speed is going to apply over multiple turns. Turn meter fill is instant. So that's just the impact and the differences between increased turn meter and increased speed. I've probably gone a little bit complicated for a lot of players here, so apologies for that. However, I hope that gives you an overview of how speed and turn meter works. The next video, what we're going to be talking about is the impact of speed divisions and divisional dragging, and that's basically how we can force enemies, opponents, or other people to forcibly take extra divisional turns, or basically move into different divisions, which means they're ticking at a longer rate to force things like 2-1, and how we can use that to actually calculate speeds that are a lot lower than what you would expect than just a standard sort of, if I'm running at 200, the enemies, if enemies running at 200, I need to run at 400 to go 2-1. It's much more advanced than that. That's what we're going to cover in the next video. But I hope that was interesting. As I said, if you have any follow-up questions, or if you feel like I've overlooked anything, just chuck it in the comments below, and I will be monitoring them for the first day, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. And as always, if anyone has any challenges with speed tunes, especially clan boss and stun targeting, please join our Hell Hades Discord, get involved. We've got a number of mods and a number of experts who are willing to help out and try and get you great successes on clan boss. And I'll catch you in the next video.